Earth's unexpected arrival stuns the Galactic Council. They never expected this. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void of space like a giant metal flower. Its silver arms stretched out in all directions, each one the size of a small city. The station orbited slowly around a blue-green planet far below, and inside its halls, the most important meeting in the galaxy was taking place. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of his ship, the USS Endeavour, and watched the stars streak past the windows. His crew had just finished their first trip to another star system using Earth's brand-new faster-than-light engine. The mission to Proxima Centauri had been a complete success, and now they were heading home to tell everyone the good news. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and calm blue eyes. He had been chosen to lead this historic mission because he never panicked, even when things went wrong. "Ready for the jump home, Captain," said Dr. Lisa Rodriguez from her station. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though they had not found any yet. Lisa had black hair tied back in a ponytail and dark eyes that missed nothing. She had spent years studying what aliens might be like, never knowing that today she would meet them face to face. "All systems look good," reported Ryan Torres, the chief engineer. Ryan was a stocky man with thick arms from years of working with machines. He knew every bolt and wire on the ship. "The quantum drive is charged and ready to go." Jake nodded and sat down in his captain's chair. "Take us home, Ryan." The engineer's fingers danced over his controls and the space around them began to shimmer and bend. The Endeavour's experimental quantum drive was humanity's greatest achievement. It folded space like a piece of paper, allowing ships to travel between stars in minutes instead of years. What the humans did not know was that they had invented something the rest of the galaxy thought was impossible. But as the drive engaged, warning lights began flashing all over the bridge. "Captain, we have a problem," Ryan called out, sweat beginning to form on his forehead. "The quantum field is unstable. Something is pulling us off course. Can you fix it?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the danger. "I'm trying, but the drive is not responding properly. We're being dragged somewhere else." Ben Carter, the communications officer, looked up from his station with worry in his green eyes. Ben was young and had joined the crew because he was the best at fixing radio problems in all of Earth's space program. "Captain, I'm picking up massive energy readings ahead of us. Something huge is out there." The ship shook and rattled as forces beyond their control grabbed hold of them. Through the windows, they could see space itself twisting and bending around them. Colors that had no names swirled past their ship like paint in water. Then suddenly everything stopped. "Where are we?" Lisa asked, looking at her instruments with confusion. Before anyone could answer, Ben's communication board lit up like a Christmas tree. "Captain, I'm getting signals from everywhere. Dozens of different sources, all using technologies I've never seen before." Jake stood up and walked to the main window. What he saw there made his breath catch in his throat. Ahead of them was the largest structure he had ever seen. It was bigger than any city on Earth, made of metal and crystal that gleamed with its own light. Strange ships of every shape and size moved around it like fish around a coral reef. "My God," whispered Lisa. "It's a space station. But who built it?" Before Jake could answer, their ship was suddenly surrounded by alien vessels. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Some looked like giant insects made of metal. Others were smooth and round like pearls, and still others seemed to be made of pure energy that held the shape of a ship. "Captain," Ben said, his voice tight with fear, "they're scanning us. Their technology is so advanced I can barely detect what they're doing." On the massive space station, alarms were ringing in the Great Assembly Hall. 47 different alien species had been meeting to discuss trade and territory, just like they did every month. The hall was enormous, with seats and platforms designed for beings that flew, crawled, floated, and walked. Some of the aliens looked like giant lizards, others like living clouds of gas, and still others defied any description at all. Admiral Zex Thor was the first to react to the emergency. He was a reptilian being with scales that changed color when he was angry, and right now they were flashing bright red. His job was to protect the Council from threats, and an unknown ship appearing from nowhere was definitely a threat. "All security ships surround the intruder immediately," he commanded. "Do not let it escape." In the center of the Great Hall, Council Speaker Veltara floated above the other delegates. She was a being made of pure energy, looking like a woman-shaped aurora dancing in the air. Her voice carried to every corner of the massive room. "Order, please." We must determine what this ship is and where it came from. High Inquisitor Morgath clicked his mandibles together nervously. He was an insectoid being with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see in all directions at once. His job was to question anyone who might be a threat to the Council. The ship's design is completely unknown, he reported. It matches no species in our databases. Yet somehow it has faster-than-light capability. Back on the Endeavor, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez was working frantically with Ben Carter to figure out how to talk to the aliens. I'm trying to break into their communication system, Ben said. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but I think I can patch into their main frequency. Do it, Jake ordered. We need to let them know we're not here to cause trouble. Ben's fingers flew over his controls, using every trick he had learned about communication systems. Finally, he looked up with a grin. Got it, Captain. You're connected to their main assembly hall. Jake took a deep breath and spoke into his communicator. His voice carried across space to the council chamber, where it echoed through halls filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. This is Captain Jake Sullivan of the United Earthship Endeavor. We come in peace and request assistance. Our navigation system has malfunctioned and we are lost. The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. The great assembly hall erupted in chaos. Aliens began talking, clicking, buzzing, and humming all at once. Many of them had never heard of Earth or humans. The very existence of another spacefaring species that had developed independently was shocking beyond belief. Council Speaker Veltara raised her glowing form higher above the crowd. Silence, she commanded, and gradually the noise died down. Captain Sullivan, you say you are from Earth. This world is not in any of our star charts. How did your species develop interstellar travel? Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same mixture of fear and excitement in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. They had set out to explore one nearby star, and instead had discovered that the galaxy was full of intelligent life. We developed it ourselves over the past 50 years, he answered honestly. This is our first ship capable of traveling between stars. The silence that followed his words was deafening. In the council chamber, representatives from species that had taken centuries to develop space travel stared at each other in disbelief. A species that had gone from primitive to interstellar in mere decades was unheard of. Impossible, muttered General Quazix, a warrior from the militaristic Vorthan Empire. His body was covered in natural armor, and his 6 arms ended in claws sharp enough to cut through steel. No species develops that quickly without guidance, but the evidence was floating right in front of them. Somehow, against all odds and expectations, humanity had stumbled into the galactic community, completely on their own. Earth's unexpected arrival stuns the Galactic Council. They never expected this. 3 hours after their unexpected arrival, Captain Jake Sullivan found himself walking through corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. The alien space station was unlike anything he had ever imagined. The walls curved and twisted in impossible ways, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Beside him walked Ambassador Claire Watson, a woman with gray hair and sharp intelligence in her brown eyes. She had been Earth's top diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Stay calm and observe everything, Claire whispered to Jake as they followed their alien escorts. We're making history with every step. Their guides were a mix of different species that Jake was still trying to understand. The leader was a tall, graceful being with blue skin and 4 arms. She had introduced herself as Keftul from the Centaurian worlds. Her movements were fluid like water, and her voice sounded like music when she spoke. The council chamber is just ahead, Keftul said in perfect English. They have been preparing questions for you since your arrival. They entered a room that took Jake's breath away. It was enormous, with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. Seats and platforms filled the space, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Some beings sat in chairs like humans might use, others floated in tanks of glowing liquid, and still others hung from the ceiling like bats. At the center of it all was a raised platform where 5 aliens waited for them. Jake recognized Admiral Zexthor from their earlier communication. The reptilian being's scales were now a calm green color instead of the angry red they had been before. Next to him sat High Inquisitor Morgath, the insect-like creature whose compound eyes seemed to look in all directions at once. Please, take your seats, said Council Speaker Veltara, her energy form pulsing with soft light. We have much to discuss. Jake and Claire sat down in chairs that had been quickly brought in for them. The furniture felt strange but comfortable, as if it had been designed by someone who understood human bodies but had never actually seen one. "Let us begin with simple questions," said Morgath, his voice clicking and buzzing in a way that made Jake's skin crawl. "How many worlds does your species control?" "Just one," Claire answered. "Earth is our only home." "How long have you had space travel?" asked Admiral Zexthor. "We've been able to leave our planet for about 70 years, Jake replied. "But we only developed faster-than-light travel in the past 5 years. The aliens exchanged looks that Jake couldn't interpret. He could sense their surprise, but he didn't understand why his answers were so shocking to them. 5 years, repeated a new voice. Jake turned to see a being that looked like it was made of living metal. "Most species require centuries of development and council guidance to achieve what you describe." "We didn't know there was a council," Claire said simply. "We developed everything on our own." That statement caused another wave of surprise to ripple through the chamber. Jake could hear whispers and strange sounds coming from all around them, as the various aliens discussed what they had just heard. "Perhaps you could tell us about your technology," suggested Morgath. "How does your faster-than-light drive work?" Jake looked at Claire, who nodded. They had already decided to be completely honest with these beings. "Our chief engineer, Ryan Torres, could explain it better than I can," Jake said. "But from what I understand, we found a way to fold space itself. The ship doesn't actually move faster than light. Instead, we make the distance shorter." The reaction to this explanation was immediate and dramatic. Several aliens stood up from their seats, and the noise level in the chamber rose considerably. Jake could see fear in some of their faces, excitement in others. "That is impossible," declared the metal being. "Space folding requires technologies that took our most advanced civilizations thousands of years to develop." "Maybe we just thought about it differently," Jake suggested. High Inquisitor Morgath leaned forward, his multiple eyes focusing on the two humans. "Tell us about your world's government. Who leads your species?" Claire took this question. "We don't have one world government. Earth is divided into many different nations, each with their own leaders. We often disagree with each other. And yet you were able to develop interstellar travel," observed Admiral Zexthor. "How is this possible without unified leadership?" "Competition," Jake said. "When different groups are trying to solve the same problem, sometimes one of them finds a solution the others missed." "Competition," repeated Council Speaker Veltara thoughtfully. "An interesting concept. Most species achieve unity before they reach for the stars." The questioning continued for hours. The aliens wanted to know about human biology, culture, history, and technology. Jake and Claire answered as honestly as they could, though they could see that many of their responses confused or worried their questioners. Finally, Keftul raised one of her 4 hands. "Perhaps it would be helpful for our guests to demonstrate some of their capabilities," she suggested. "Actions often speak more clearly than words. What did you have in mind?" Claire asked. "Simple tests," said Morgath. "Nothing dangerous. We merely wish to observe human problem-solving abilities." They were led to a smaller chamber where several puzzles and challenges had been set up. Jake watched as Dr. Amanda Price, the mission's physicist, was presented with a complex mathematical problem that had been written on a wall covered with symbols he didn't recognize. "This equation describes energy flow through quantum fields," explained the alien scientist who had created it. "Most species require several weeks to find the solution." Amanda studied the symbols for a few minutes, then began writing her own symbols below them. Her hand moved quickly and confidently as she worked through the problem. Within an hour, she had not only solved the equation but had also identified 3 ways to make it more efficient. The alien scientist stared at her solution with what Jake assumed was amazement. "Remarkable," he whispered. "She has improved upon work that our best minds took years to develop." Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Ryan Torres was being tested on mechanical skills. He was given a broken piece of alien technology and asked to repair it. Ryan examined the device carefully, then began taking it apart with tools that looked nothing like anything from Earth. Within minutes, he had not only fixed the original problem, but had also upgraded the device to work better than before. "How did you know to do that?" asked the alien engineer who had created the test. "It was obvious," Ryan said with a shrug. "The power flow was inefficient, so I rerouted it through the secondary circuits." Security Chief Marcus Bell was facing his own challenge. 3 alien guards, each one bigger and stronger than any human, had surrounded him in what was supposed to be a combat exercise. The aliens expected the small human to be easily defeated. Instead, Marcus used speed and intelligence to outmaneuver his opponents, disabling all 3 without seriously injuring any of them. "Your reflexes are incredible," said one of the defeated guards. "How do you move so quickly?" "Practice," Marcus replied, "and we never give up." As the demonstrations continued, Jake could see the aliens becoming more and more excited and worried at the same time. Every test they gave the humans was passed easily, often in ways that surprised the test creators themselves. Finally, Admiral Zexthor called for a break in the proceedings. "We must discuss what we have seen," he announced. "This session will resume tomorrow." As the humans were escorted back to their quarters, Jake could hear heated discussions breaking out all around them. Some aliens seemed pleased by what they had witnessed, while others appeared frightened or angry. "What do you think they're really thinking?" Claire asked quietly as they walked. "I think," Jake replied, "they're realizing that humans might be more than they bargained for." Earth's unexpected arrival stuns the Galactic Council. They never expected this. The next morning brought news that would change everything for the human crew. Captain Jake Sullivan stood in the main conference room with his senior officers, listening as Council Speaker Veltara explained what the aliens had decided during their long night of discussions. "Your species has impressed us," Veltara said, her energy form glowing brighter than usual, "but we cannot simply grant membership to the Galactic Council based on a few demonstrations. You must prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars." Ambassador Claire Watson leaned forward in her chair. "What kind of proof do you need?" 5 trials, announced High Inquisitor Morgath, his insect-like features clicking with what might have been satisfaction. "Each trial will test a different aspect of your species' capabilities: intelligence, diplomacy, combat prowess, technological innovation, and moral character." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "And if we fail these trials?" Admiral Zexthor's scales shifted to a darker green. "That has not yet been decided." The first trial began immediately. Dr. Stephen Walsh, the mission's mathematician, found himself in a vast chamber filled with floating holographic displays. The wall showed complex equations and puzzles that hurt to look at directly. Beside him stood engineer Nancy Kim, her dark hair tied back as she studied the impossible mathematics floating in the air around them. "These problems were created by the Axiom Collective," explained their guide, "a being that looked like a crystal formation with a voice like wind chimes. They are the most intelligent species in the galaxy. Most civilizations require months to solve even one of these puzzles." Stephen and Nancy exchanged glances. They had worked together before on Earth's quantum drive project, and they knew how to combine their different skills. Stephen was brilliant with pure mathematics, while Nancy could see practical applications that others missed. "Let's start with this one," Stephen said, pointing to a complex equation that seemed to twist and change as he looked at it. "It looks like a space-time calculation." For 3 days straight, the 2 humans worked without stopping except for brief meals and short naps. They approached each problem differently than the Axiom Collective expected. Instead of following traditional mathematical rules, they found new ways to think about old problems. They used human intuition and creativity alongside pure logic. When they finally emerged from the trial chamber, they had not only solved every puzzle, but had also discovered new mathematical principles that the Axiom Collective immediately classified as revolutionary breakthroughs. "Impossible," whispered the crystal being. "These solutions should have taken years to develop." The second trial tested diplomacy, and Ambassador Claire Watson faced her greatest challenge yet. She was transported to a simulation chamber where 2 groups of aliens were locked in a bitter conflict. The Seraphim Council, masters of politics and manipulation, had created an impossible situation where both sides had completely opposite goals and no room for compromise. "You have 24 hours to negotiate a peace agreement," announced Seraphim Prime, a beautiful winged being whose voice carried hypnotic power. "Previous test subjects have never lasted more than 6 hours before giving up." Claire studied the situation carefully. The 2 artificial factions were fighting over territory, resources, and ancient grievances that seemed to have no solution. But as she listened to both sides, she began to notice something the Seraphim Council had missed. "You're not really fighting about land or resources," she told the faction leaders. You're fighting because neither group feels heard or respected by the other. Instead of trying to divide what they were fighting over, Claire proposed something completely different. She suggested a new form of government where both groups would take turns leading, with the other group serving as advisors and critics. Each side would have the chance to pursue their goals while the other side made sure those goals didn't harm anyone. The solution was so unexpected and creative that both artificial factions immediately agreed to try it. The Seraphim Council was stunned. Their test was supposed to be impossible, but the human had found an answer they had never considered. The third trial brought Security Chief Marcus Bell and Marine Sergeant Tyler Brooks face to face with the galaxy's finest warriors. The Vorthan Empire had designed brutal combat challenges intended to show that humans were weak and helpless compared to real galactic soldiers. General Quazix, his 6 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, personally oversaw the combat trials. His armored body was covered in scars from 1,000 battles, and his red eyes burned with the desire to see the humans fail. "You will face our champions in individual combat," he announced. "Then you will work as a team against multiple opponents. Finally, you will command a mixed unit of different species in a tactical exercise." Marcus faced his first opponent, a massive creature with stone-like skin and fists the size of bowling balls. The alien was 3 times Marcus's size and weight, but Marcus had advantages the alien didn't expect. He was faster, more flexible, and had been trained to fight against larger opponents. The battle lasted only minutes. Marcus used the alien's size against him, staying mobile and striking at weak points until his opponent was too dizzy and bruised to continue fighting. Tyler's individual combat was even more impressive. His opponent was a warrior with 4 arms and the ability to move like lightning. But Tyler had grown up in Earth's toughest neighborhoods and had learned to fight dirty when necessary. He used every trick he knew, from throwing sand in his opponent's eyes to attacking from unexpected angles. The team combat was where the humans really shined. Marcus and Tyler worked together like they could read each other's minds. They covered each other's weaknesses and doubled each other's strengths. Against 5 opponents, they moved like dancers, flowing around attacks and striking back with perfect timing. "How do they coordinate so well without speaking?" asked one of the Vorthan observers. "Practice," Tyler replied simply, "and trust." The tactical exercise was the final part of the combat trial. Marcus was given command of a unit containing warriors from 6 different species, each with their own fighting styles and abilities. Most test subjects failed this challenge because they tried to force everyone to fight the same way. Marcus did something different. He spent time learning what each warrior did best, then created a strategy that let everyone use their natural strengths. The bird-like aerials scouted from above. The heavily armored rockjaws formed a defensive line, and the swift quicksilvers flanked the enemy. The simulated battle was over so quickly that General Quazix demanded to see the recordings 3 times to make sure there had been no mistakes. "Your tactics are unorthodox," he admitted grudgingly, "but effective." The 4th trial tested technological innovation. Dr. Amanda Price and engineer Ryan Torres were taken to a laboratory filled with advanced galactic technology that was supposedly perfect and could not be improved. "These devices represent the pinnacle of galactic engineering," said the lead scientist, a being that looked like a walking tree made of metal. "For thousands of years, no one has been able to enhance their performance." Amanda and Ryan studied the technology with the fresh eyes of outsiders. They didn't know what was supposed to be impossible, so they tried things that the galaxy's best engineers had never considered. In just 2 days, they increased the energy efficiency of quantum processors by 40%. They also developed a new form of gravity manipulation that the galaxy's scientists had believed was theoretically impossible. "How did you know to try that?" asked the metal tree scientist. "We didn't know we weren't supposed to," Amanda replied with a smile. As the trials progressed, word spread throughout the galaxy about the remarkable humans who were passing every test with ease. Some species began to see humanity as a potential ally and friend. Others saw them as a dangerous threat that needed to be stopped. The final trial was approaching, and everyone knew it would be the most important one of all. The test of moral character would determine not just human capabilities, but whether they deserved to join galactic civilization at all. Earth's unexpected arrival stuns the Galactic Council. They never expected this. The final trial began with what seemed like a simple briefing. Captain Jake Sullivan and his entire crew were brought to a chamber where ancient beings called the Ethereal Conclave waited for them. These creatures looked like ghosts made of starlight, and their voices seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "This trial will test your moral character," announced the lead ethereal, whose name could not be pronounced by human tongues. "You will be transported to a world facing multiple disasters. Your task is to save as many lives as possible with limited resources." Dr. Lisa Rodriguez raised her hand. "Is this a simulation like the diplomatic trial?" "That information is not relevant to your performance," replied the ethereal. "You must act as if every life depends on your choices." Within minutes, the entire human crew found themselves standing on the surface of a dying world. The planet Kelvara Prime stretched out before them, and everywhere they looked they saw suffering and destruction. Volcanoes erupted in the distance, sending ash clouds across the sky. Cities burned from civil war. A deadly plague was spreading through the population. Rivers had dried up and crops were failing. The local inhabitants, called Kelvarans, looked similar to humans, but with blue-tinted skin and large, frightened eyes. They gathered around the newly arrived strangers, desperate for help but not daring to hope. "My God," whispered Dr. Kate Morrison, the mission's medical officer. "There are millions of people here and they're all dying." Jake took command immediately. "We need to prioritize. What can we fix first that will save the most lives?" Engineer Nancy Kim was already scanning the area with her equipment. "The water treatment plants are failing. If we can't get clean water flowing again, the plague will spread even faster. The volcanic activity is increasing," added Dr. Amanda Price, studying readings on her tablet. "If the main volcano erupts fully, it will wipe out half the continent." Dr. Stephen Walsh was calculating frantically. "The agricultural system has completely collapsed. Even if we stop everything else, people will starve within weeks." Jake felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. Every decision would mean saving some lives while losing others. But that was exactly the kind of thinking he refused to accept. "We're not choosing who lives and who dies," he said firmly. "We're finding a way to save everyone." The crew split up to tackle different problems simultaneously. Dr. Morrison immediately set up a medical station and began treating plague victims. She worked alongside local doctors, showing them new techniques for fighting the disease. Her human immune system was different from theirs, and she was able to develop treatments that the Kelvarans had never considered. Engineer Ryan Torres and Nancy Kim focused on the infrastructure problems. They worked day and night to repair water treatment facilities, using human engineering principles that were simpler but more effective than the complex Kelvaran systems. When they ran out of proper parts, they improvised with local materials. "This shouldn't work," said a Kelvaran engineer, watching Ryan fix a massive water pump with spare parts from a broken vehicle. "The materials are incompatible." "Sometimes incompatible materials work better together," Ryan replied, not stopping his work. "Diversity makes systems stronger." Dr. Amanda Price tackled the volcanic problem with the help of Dr. Walsh's mathematical calculations. They couldn't stop the volcano, but they could redirect its energy. Using controlled explosions and redirected lava flows, they turned the destructive force into geothermal power that could help rebuild the planet. Meanwhile, Security Chief Marcus Bell and Marine Sergeant Tyler Brooks worked to end the Civil War. They didn't take sides or use violence. Instead, they organized evacuation routes and safe zones where both sides could help rescue civilians. Gradually, the warring factions began working together to save lives instead of fighting each other. "Why are you helping both sides?" asked a Kelvaran general. "We are enemies." "Right now, your real enemy is the disaster," Tyler replied. "You can go back to fighting each other after everyone is safe." Here's the agricultural crisis required the most creative solution. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez worked with local farmers to identify plants that could grow in the ash-covered soil. She combined human knowledge of agriculture with Kelvaran understanding of their planet's unique biology. Together, they developed new farming techniques that could feed the population even in the harsh conditions. As the humans worked, something remarkable began to happen. The Kelvarans started to hope again. They saw that the strange visitors were willing to risk their own lives to save people they had never met. The humans shared their food, gave up their rest, and refused to abandon anyone. "You could have chosen to save only the healthiest and strongest," observed an elderly Kelvaran scientist. "That would have been the logical choice." "Logic without compassion isn't really logic at all," replied Dr. Morrison, not looking up from the patient she was treating. Every life has value. For 72 hours straight, the humans barely stopped to eat or sleep. They pushed themselves beyond their limits because they knew that every minute counted. When they ran out of medical supplies, Dr. Morrison used local plants to create new medicines. When their equipment failed, the engineers built new tools from scrap metal and broken electronics. Captain Jake Sullivan coordinated everything from a makeshift command center. He made sure that resources went where they were needed most. But he never gave up on any group of survivors. When told that a remote village was too dangerous to reach, he sent Tyler and Marcus anyway. When informed that a particular disease was incurable, Dr. Morrison worked until she found a cure. "This is impossible," said a Kelveran leader, watching the humans save his people. No one could coordinate this much activity without advanced computer systems. "We don't need computers," Jake replied. "We have something better. We have people who care." By the end of the third day, the planet was transformed. The plague was under control, clean water flowed again, and the volcanic crisis had been turned into an opportunity. The Civil War had ended not through conquest but through cooperation. Food production was not only restored but improved beyond what it had been before the crisis. Most importantly, the Kelveran people had learned to work together in ways they never had before. The humans had not just saved their lives but had shown them how to save themselves. As the trial officially ended, the ethereal conclave appeared again. But this time their starlight forms seemed brighter and more solid than before. "The trial is complete," announced their leader. "We must now reveal something important." This was not a simulation. Kelvara Prime is a real world, and the people you saved are real people. Dr. Rodriguez stared at the ethereal in shock. "You mean we were actually saving lives?" "Yes, 17 other species have taken this trial before you. All of them were told the same thing you were told. All of them believed they were participating in a simulation where their choices did not matter." Jake felt his heart sink. What happened to those other species? "They failed. When beings believe their actions have no real consequences, they reveal their true nature. Previous test subjects made cruel choices, selected only the strong to survive, and abandoned the weak and helpless." The ethereal's voice carried something that might have been wonder. "Only your species treated simulated lives with the same respect as real ones. Only humans acted with full compassion even when they believed there would be no consequences for their choices. As the humans were transported back to Nexus Prime, they realized that they had not just passed a trial. They had saved an entire civilization and proven something remarkable about their own species. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had to offer. Earth's unexpected arrival stuns the Galactic Council. They never expected this. The great assembly hall of Nexus Prime had never been so packed with beings from across the galaxy. Word of the human trials had spread, and representatives from dozens of species had come to witness the final judgment. Captain Jake Sullivan stood with his crew in the center of the massive chamber, surrounded by aliens whose reactions to humanity ranged from wonder to fear. Council Speaker Veltara floated above them all, her energy form pulsing with colors that seemed to reflect the tension in the room. "We have gathered to hear the results of the 5 trials, and to decide humanity's fate in our galactic community." The first to speak was the crystal being from the Axiom Collective. Its voice chimed like wind through glass as it delivered its report. "The human species has demonstrated mathematical abilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. They solved problems in days that our greatest minds required months to complete. More importantly, they discovered new principles that could advance galactic science by centuries." Murmurs of amazement rippled through the assembly. Mathematics was the foundation of all technology, and the Axiom Collective was known throughout the galaxy for their intellectual superiority. Next came Seraphim Prime, her beautiful wings folding around her as she spoke. "In matters of diplomacy, the humans have shown creativity beyond anything we have witnessed. They solved our impossible negotiation scenario not through manipulation or force, but through genuine understanding of the underlying needs of both parties. Their diplomatic methods could end conflicts we have believed permanent for millennia." The reaction to this was more mixed. Some species appreciated the potential for peace, while others seemed worried about changes to the existing power structure. General Quasic stepped forward, his armored form imposing even among the diverse gathering. His 6 arms were folded, but his voice carried grudging respect. "The humans have proven themselves in combat through skill, strategy, and innovation, rather than brute force. They fight with honor and adapt to any situation. More than that, they turn enemies into allies through their actions. This admission from the militaristic Vorthon Empire shocked many in the assembly. General Quazix was known for his hatred of weakness, yet he was praising the smaller, physically weaker humans. The metal tree scientist spoke next, its voice creaking like old wood. Human technological innovation defies explanation. They improved devices that we considered perfect. They achieved breakthrough after breakthrough not through advanced knowledge, but through fresh perspective and refusal to accept limitations. Finally, the lead ethereal appeared, its starlight form brighter than any of the others had seen before. The moral character trial has revealed something unprecedented in galactic history. 17 species before humanity took this trial. All failed because they made cruel choices when they believed their actions carried no consequences. Only humans treated simulated lives with the same compassion as real ones. The silence that followed this statement was profound. Even species that had opposed humanity's membership seemed stunned by the implications of what they had heard. But not everyone was ready to celebrate. Admiral Zexthor rose from his seat, his scales shifting to an angry red. These reports paint an impressive picture, but we must consider the full truth about humanity. Our intelligence gathering has revealed their history of warfare, environmental destruction, and violence against their own species. He activated a holographic display that showed images from Earth's darker moments. Wars, pollution, extinct species, and human cruelty filled the air above the assembly. This species nearly destroyed their own world, Zexthor continued. They have fought countless wars against each other. They have driven other species on their planet to extinction. How can we trust beings capable of such destruction? The mood in the chamber shifted dramatically. Many aliens who had been impressed by the trial results now looked at the humans with suspicion and fear. Captain Jake Sullivan felt the weight of his species' history pressing down on him. Every image Zexthor showed was true, and Jake knew that denying it would be pointless. Instead, he asked for permission to speak. Admiral Zexthor is right about our history, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Humans have done terrible things. We have made mistakes that cost millions of lives and damaged our world badly. He paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. But that history is exactly why we value peace and cooperation so much now. We know what happens when people fight instead of working together. We've seen the cost of caring more about profit than about our planet's health. Ambassador Claire Watson stepped forward to join him. Our darkest moments taught us our most important lessons. Every war showed us the value of peace. Every environmental disaster taught us to protect what we have. Every act of cruelty reminded us to choose compassion instead. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez spoke up from behind them. The species that took the moral trial before us probably had peaceful histories. They never had to learn the hard way why every life matters. Maybe that's why they failed when they thought the consequences weren't real. We don't ask you to ignore our past, Jake continued. We ask you to see what we've learned from it. We're not perfect, but we're always trying to become better. The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Species argued back and forth about whether humanity's violent history disqualified them from galactic citizenship, or whether their growth from that history made them more valuable as allies. Finally, Council Speaker Veltara called for order. The time has come to vote. All those in favor of granting humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Council. The voting process was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Different species cast their votes in different ways, some through light patterns, others through musical tones, and still others through biochemical signals that filled the air with strange scents. Jake held his breath as the votes were tallied. 24 species voted in favor of humanity's membership. 22 voted against. 1 species abstained, unable to decide. By the narrowest of margins, Veltara announced, humanity is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. You will have full rights and responsibilities, but your actions will be monitored for a period of 10 Earth years. The chamber erupted in noise as different species reacted to the decision. Some cheered, others protested, and many seemed simply stunned by what had happened. But Jake's attention was drawn to his communication device, which was receiving an urgent message from an unexpected source. As he read it, his eyes widened with surprise. Captain, Ambassador Watson asked, what is it? Jake looked up at his crew with a mixture of amazement and concern. We're receiving requests from 17 different species. They want to know if they can join a new alliance based on human principles of cooperation, innovation, and moral responsibility. Dr. Amanda Price laughed with disbelief. They want to join us? It seems, Jake said slowly, that we didn't just get accepted into galactic civilization. We've started changing it. As the USS Endeavour prepared to return to Earth with news that would transform human understanding of their place in the universe, Jake realized that their accidental arrival at the Galactic Council had done more than stun the aliens. It had begun a revolution in how the galaxy thought about cooperation, growth, and the potential for any species to become something greater than they had been before. The galaxy would indeed never be the same, but neither would humanity. They had come seeking the stars and found something far greater, the chance to help build a better future for everyone.